Hey, good afternoon, everybody. It is August 11th, 2025, and we are in the New Testament book of Mark. We're going to read chapter 7, verse 1 to 8:26. So big section, a lot's going to happen here. We're going to see this first confrontation with the Pharisees. We start with where they're questioning why they don't wash their hands before they eat, and Jesus famously tells them, hey, it's not what goes into you that defiles you, it's what comes out that defiles you. And he's going to talk to them about the traditions of men. Now, the Pharisees, very big on the law. They have taken the 600 commandments or so that are in our Bible and turned it into 6,000 commandments and said, no, we have to do all of those things. You have to do all of those. In fact, they take precedence over what's in here. So essentially, Jesus' complaint with the Pharisees is they're very anal about the letter of the law and what has to be done to please themselves, where he's saying, no, it's the spirit of the law that God wants. Okay, and he talks about the Sabbath and saying, you know what, doing good on the Sabbath is never a sin. Okay, that's not was the intention of God saying don't work on the Sabbath, was you can't do anything good on the Sabbath. It was, you had to pick a day and honor God. Let's see, he moves from that confrontation into Tyre and Sidon. He's going through the Gentile regions of the Holy Land, and he sees the Syrophoenician woman who he calls a dog, famously. The actual Greek word there is more like a puppy. So he's saying, hey, you know what? I'm not here to throw the word to the puppies. I'm here to give it to the children of Israel. And she answers him in his own parable and says, hey, you know what? The children are just leaving it on the table. I'm hungry. I want it. And Jesus says, you know what? You got it. That's exactly the message that should be, how it should be received by people, even here in the Gentiles. And your daughter as well. Go. He moves from there to healing a deaf mute. A little bit different. He spits on the guy's tongue. Now, spit is magical. All right, you have a boo-boo. What does your mom do? And she rubs it on it. That's an old tradition from a long ways back. So essentially what we want to see is he does the folk healing bit of it, but the actual healing comes when he looks up and prays and says, be open. And he's going to expand on that a little bit later on. He goes from there to feed 4,000. So we fed 5,000 on a couple of fish fillet sandwiches. He's going to do the same thing in the Decapolis area. 4,000 followers. They originally threw him out last time he was there. So that one guy with the legion of demons that were cast out has done his job. He has spread the word. There are people waiting for Jesus when he gets there. And he does a repeat of the miracle that he did with the Jews. Think to the book of Acts, where we have Pentecost among the Jews, and then at the house of the centurion we have a similar outpouring with the Gentiles, and that's what's used to say, hey, you know what, Gentiles don't have to become Jews in Acts. So we can see that even though Jesus came to the Jews first, the Gentiles were always included. Jesus is always, he's there, he went there, he talked to him, he did miracles there. The Pharisees seek a sign. He says, hey, what more signs do you need, dudes? I've fulfilled all the signs that you were looking for, and you're ignoring them. Beware of the leaven of the Pharisees, and we see that the disciples also still don't quite get it. They're still thinking of Jesus with their own perception. That's going to come later, that they get the full message. And he heals a blind man at Bethsaida, and there he spits. Again, that spit, and what do you see? And he says, well, I see things, but they're blurry. So yeah, the physical isn't the answer. It was the spiritual healing that he does after that, and then the man can see again. All right, so let's go ahead. We're going to read this long section, Mark chapter 7, verse 1 to 8:26. Then the Pharisees and some of the scribes came together to him, having come from Jerusalem. Now when they saw some of his disciples eat bread with defiled, that is, with unwashed hands, they found fault. For the Pharisees and all the Jews do not eat unless they wash their hands in a special way, holding the tradition of the elders. When they come from the marketplace, they do not eat unless they wash, and there are many other things which they have received and hold, like the washing of cups, pitchers, copper vessels, and couches. Then the Pharisees and scribes asked him, why do your disciples not walk according to the tradition of the elders, but eat bread with unwashed hands? He answered and said to them, Well did Isaiah prophesy of you hypocrites, as it is written, This people honors me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. And in vain they worship me, teaching as doctrines the commandments of men. For laying aside the commandment of God, you hold the tradition of men, the washing of pitchers and cups, and many other such things you do. He said to them, All too well you reject the commandment of God, that you may keep your tradition. For Moses said, Honor your father and your mother, and he who curses father or mother, let him be put to death. But you say, If a man says to his father or mother, Whatever profit you may have received from me is korban, that is, a gift to God, then you no longer let him do anything for his father or his mother, making the word of God of no effect through your tradition, which you have handed down, and many such things you do. When he had called all the multitude to himself, he said to them, Hear me, everyone, and understand. There is nothing that enters a man from outside which can defile him, but the things which come out of him, those are the things that defile a man. If anyone has ears to hear, let him hear. Then when he had entered a house away from the crowd, his disciples asked him concerning the parable. So he said to them, Are you thus without understanding? Also, do you not perceive that whatever enters a man from outside cannot defile him, because it does not enter his heart, but his stomach, and is eliminated, thus purifying all foods? And he said, What comes out of a man that defiles a man? For from within, out of the heart of men, proceed evil thoughts, adulteries, fornications, murders, thefts, covetousness, wickedness, deceit, lewdness, an evil eye, blasphemy, pride, foolishness. All these evil things come from within and defile a man. From there he arose and went to the region of Tyre and Sidon, and he entered a house and wanted no one to know it, but he could not be hidden. For a woman whose young daughter had an unclean spirit heard about him, and she came and fell at his feet. The woman was a Greek, a Syrophoenician by birth, and she kept asking him to cast the demon out of her daughter. But Jesus said to her, Let the children be filled first, for it is not good to take the children's bread and throw it to the little dogs. And she answered and said to him, Yes, Lord, yet even the little dogs under the table eat from the children's crumbs. And he said to her, For this saying, Go your way, the demon has gone out of your daughter. And when she had come to her house, she found the demon gone, and her daughter lying on the bed. Again departing from the region of Tyre and Sidon, he came through the midst of the region of Decapolis to the Sea of Galilee. Then they brought to him one who was deaf, and had an impediment in his speech, and they begged him to put his hand on him. And he took him aside from the multitude, put his fingers in his ears, and he spat and touched his tongue. Then looking up to heaven, he sighed and said to him, Ephphatha, that is, be opened. Immediately his ears were opened, and the impediment of his tongue was loosed, and he spoke plainly. Then he commanded them that they should tell no one, but the more he commanded them, the more widely they proclaimed it. And they were astonished beyond measure, saying, He has done all things well. He makes both the deaf to hear and the mute to speak. In those days, the multitude being very great and having nothing to eat, Jesus called his disciples to him and said to them, I have compassion on the multitude, because they have now continued with me 3 days and have nothing to eat. And if I send them away hungry to their own houses, they will faint on the way, for some of them have come from afar. Then his disciples answered him, How can one satisfy these people with bread here in the wilderness? He asked them, How many loaves do you have? And they said, 7. So he commanded the multitude to sit down on the ground. And he took the 7 loaves and gave thanks, broke them, and gave them to his disciples to set before them, and they set them before the multitude. They also had a few small fish, and having blessed them, he said to set them also before them. So they ate and were filled, and they took up 7 large baskets of leftover fragments. Now those who had eaten were about 4,000, and he sent them away. Immediately got into the boat with his disciples, and came to the region of Dalmanutha. So he's back in Jewish territory. Then the Pharisees came out and began to dispute with him, seeking from him a sign from heaven, testing him. But he sighed deeply in his spirit and said, Why does this generation seek a sign? Assuredly I say to you, no sign shall be given to this generation. And he left them, and getting into the boat again, departed to the other side. Now the disciples had forgotten to take bread, and they did not have more than 1 loaf with them in the boat. Then he charged them, saying, Take heed, beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and the leaven of Herod. And they reasoned among themselves, saying, It is because we have no bread. But Jesus, being aware of it, said to them, Why do you reason because you have no bread? Do you not yet perceive nor understand? Is your heart still hardened? Having eyes do you not see, and having ears do you not hear? And do you not remember when I broke the 5 loaves for the 5,000? How many baskets full of fragments did you take up? They said to him, 12. Also when I broke the 7 for the 4,000, how many large baskets full of fragments did you take up? And they said, 7. So he said to them, How is it you do not understand? Then he came to Bethsaida, and they brought a blind man to him and begged him to touch him. So he took the blind man by the hand, and he led him out of the town. And when he had spit on his eyes and put his hands on him, he asked him if he saw anything. And he looked up and he said, I see men like trees walking. Then he put his hands on his eyes again and made him look up, and he was restored and saw everyone clearly. Then he sent him away to his house, saying, "Neither go into the town nor tell anyone in the town." May God bless the reading of his word. May God bless you. Bye.